Well, in this video is basically one thing is white privilege, and the second part is what exactly do social justice warriors produce for society. Let's start with the second part first. What do social justice warriors really produce for society? If you volunteer like I have, you don't run across social justice warriors. If you work around African Americans and stuff, you don't really run into too many social justice warriors. You just don't. You don't see them actually helping anybody. You'll see them on college campuses yelling and screaming and all this stuff. Throwing tantrums, pulling fire alarms, and not allowing anybody to express their views. You'll see that nonsense. College professors, those are social justice warriors, extreme liberals. I'm not saying liberals themselves. What do they produce? What are they actually producing? These sociologists and humanities and all of them. They're behind college doors, the walls of the universities. But what are they really producing? None of their work is true, is what you would call knowledge. Because anyone can refute what they're saying, and they can refute what the other person is saying, back and forth, without listening, and they both can give you evidence and statistics that back up what they say. It's not like science. I've already made a video about how science is superior to any of these college professors and their nonsense, and these social justice warriors and their nonsense. You see that, yesterday, actually, it was yesterday, on Yahoo, I was reading this article. A college professor said anyone who doesn't support safe spaces or believes in microaggression is stupid. Why? Why are they stupid? Because they don't believe in safe spaces. When these students get out in the real world, there will be no safe spaces. And what exactly is a microaggression? None of them seem to agree. You ask a white person, if you ask an Asian person where they're from, is that microaggression? Or any of these college professors, they'll say, yes, that's microaggression. But if you ask an Asian person if that's microaggression, they'll say no. What the hell? And then, of course, if you mispronounce someone's last name, that's microaggression. Well, I'm Iranian. Guess what? You're going to mispronounce my last name. Do I consider that microaggression? Hell no. If you say anything about Islam, well, I consider that microaggression? Hell no. Of course, I'm not Muslim. But what do these social justice warriors actually produce for society? What are they doing to better society, better our knowledge and understanding? They don't believe in free speech or free debate. They don't. All they do is yell and scream. They stop others from being able to speak. That's basically all they do. If you have any ideas or views that are different than theirs, they yell and scream at you. They'll spit at you. Lauren Southern had urine dumped on her. They're nasty people. Pull fire alarms with men's rights movement. Those people, they're talking about, cancer and all these other things that affect men. What do these feminists do? They pull fire alarms and they're pretty nasty. You don't see these men's rights movement, even the ones that are extremely sexist, because there's, always bad people in every group. But, they are extremely sexist doing this same crap to feminists. The extreme feminists. Not all feminists are, horrible people. But really, what do social justice warriors really produce for society? Or are they just basically have nothing really to complain about, nothing really to bitch about? They just make things up, which seems like that's what they do. They find something to be offended by. That's all you ever see them doing. And I'm showing these two books because this book I really just believe you should read. It's actually a good book. It's actually a good book. Critical Race Theory. There's another book called Hate Speech I plan to get eventually. But this is a good book. It's not, as horrible as what you hear from these social justice warriors, but you can easily refute a lot of this stuff. This book is great too because it gives you a nice history, of the Muslims, their wonderful things they did to Europe, murdering, rape, and all that, enslaving Europeans, things that you won't learn, and things these social justice warriors will completely ignore. You should get books like this, not just this one, but any books, Jihad by Paul Frigosi, and of course Critical Race Theory by Richard Delgado and John Stefanik. Also, I believe this is the guy, I may be wrong, You can look him up. He wrote a book about, defending the Nazis. It may not be him, okay? Just, go to Amazon and watch something about defending the Nazis. If you click on this book, in Amazon, it will give you, certain recommendations, and that will show up too. Basically, these social justice warriors love the Nazis so much because the Nazis were good at suppressing free speech, and they hate free speech. And if you read Hitler's Mein Kampf, which I strongly suggest you do, you will see that Hitler was a social justice warrior. And please don't fall into the trap thinking that social justice warriors are liberals. They can be conservatives too. Because basically they just want social justice. But they want social justice for certain groups at the expense of other groups. Listen to these social justice warriors. They hate whites, they hate men, they especially hate white men. Listen to the things they talk about. The nonsense that comes out of their mouth. And they don't want anyone else to speak but them. They don't really know what the Muslims have done to Europeans. I'll tell you all the evils of white people. They have no clue about the evils that the Muslims did, the Turks. How is Turkey in Europe? What did the Turks do to all those Europeans? They murdered, raped, and enslaved them. That's why Turkey is there. What do you think the Turks did to the people who lived in that land before them? But you don't hear about that. All you hear is, well, the whites, they murdered the Indians and took their land. Well, people have been taking other people's lands for thousands of years. Read about the Aztecs and the Mayans and all these other groups, Indian tribes. Learn about the Koreans, the Japanese and the Chinese, the Mongolians, the Huns and all these other groups. Now, white privilege. Let's discuss a little bit about white privilege. Now, if you are like me and you've worked around African Americans, worked around, black colleges and places like that, you'll notice this white privilege is just nonsense. It's just crap. It's just a way to belittle whites and silence white people. They really don't want white people to speak. White-splaining is what they call it. Sometimes, if you try to explain your side, white-splaining, or tell these people, this, blah, blah, is white-splaining, you see this nonsense. Basically, they're being racist against whites. Of course, minorities can't be racist. They change the definitions. Just like feminists will change the definitions. They try to change the definition of what racist is. But they're racist against whites. Because let's face it, majority of the scholarships and loans and grants that are for minorities to go to college, they have a better chance of getting to graduate school. Because graduate school, STEM field, they are looking for minorities and women more than any other group. But very few women and minorities really apply. Now, they do get so many opportunities. They get more than white, so calling it white privilege is nonsense. I strongly recommend this book, The Fragile Mind, by Jared Conrad. He does a much better job explaining all this stuff, all this, because when you use the term white privilege, think about it. You're going to tell a white person that's living in a trailer park, barefoot, barely can afford for anything, or living out in the mountains and Appalachians and stuff like that. They're dirt poor. Their parents, their grandparents, great-grandparents are dirt freaking poor. That, hey, you're privileged because you're white. Come on, you're not going to win them over to your side. And if you don't want to win them over to your side, then your side's not going to win. You're just a racist little bastard. You're basically a little Hitler. Now, that does not mean that, African Americans don't have some disadvantages. It's true, which is why I say you read this book, The Fragile Mind by Jared Conrad. Get critical race theory. Jihad. There's plenty of other books that I would suggest. I don't really feel like getting all of my books out. I've read so many of them, read so many articles and everything, I just can't get into this social justice warrior nonsense because they're just out of their minds with their hatred. They come across as extremely violent, vile, hateful, mean-spirited, racist, and sexist. Even if you listen to them, it's hard not to think that way. You don't really want to listen to them. And the worst part about them is the fact, because of their nonsense, whenever people try to speak up against injustices, that certain groups may go through, people say, oh, you're just a social justice warrior. You know, they are actually listening to both sides and willing to listen, and they have valid points. No one wants to listen to them because you'll just assume there's some social justice warrior. That's why I'm going to make a video much later on how why these social justice warriors are actually helping the predatory elite. They are. They may or may not realize it or care, but they are, because they keep us separated. You know, the Black Lives Movement. You know, if you go to these websites. You know, you go to YouTube, for example, you'll see all these anti-white videos. Always, I hate white people are the devils, and all this stuff. There aren't as many I hate black people videos, but there are tons of this anti-white people crap. You think about it, the point is they keep us all fighting each other. That way these elites can keep getting more money. They get more and more money while we have nothing, and we're just fighting each other for no reason. Now, I'm not saying we all band together and attack them violently. Hell no. You just simply realize what's going on, and you try to improve. We try to improve each other's lives and our own. Of course, that's never going to happen because you got too many weak-minded social justice warriors. There's feminists, the Black Lives Matters, and all these other groups, and the men's rights movement. Some of them can fall in that category too. All these other groups can too. If you only care about your own group and you're not trying to help others, and that's not good. And not necessarily social justice work, but that's not good. Feel free to like, subscribe, leave a comment, or and some of you are going to leave a thumbs down. That's fine too.